The following segment is sponsored by Daniel A. White and Associates. It does not necessarily reflect the views of WDEL or Forever Media.
The Rick Jensen Show on 101.7 FM, 1150 AM, WDEL. And streaming to your smart speaker and mobile device.
Broadcasting live from the Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield, a sponsored studio. Rick Jensen here. Let's get wrong with Dan White. Every Wednesday after the news at 1:30, Dan or one of his associates gives you some great advice, great tips, because they are financial planners specializing in retirement income. Hi, Dan. How are you, sir?
How you doing, Rick? I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Well, I can always tell you're upbeat when the Phillies win, and so far, 2 down, 2 to go with the Mets.
Yeah, they're playing really good ball. They're the first team in the major leagues to get to 30 wins, so everything's good in Phillies world.
Yeah, it's going to be weird to see what happens in London. What's that, June, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said it was funny the other day. I said they're getting boring. All they do is win.
Stop that.
Never thought you'd hear that in Philadelphia.
No. I don't believe in jinxes or superstition, except for baseball. That's the only time I believe in jinxes and superstition. Baseball.
Yeah.
All right. So I know that you like to focus on folks being very careful with their investments and how they take them out of their accounts when they get older, and how to manage that kind of stuff. What kind of a tip do you have for us today?
So it's kind of a cheat sheet for if you have inherited an IRA. They've changed all the rules on this. It's been over 4 years since the Secure Act kind of upended the rules for beneficiary IRA required minimum distributions. Still plenty of confusion. They did give some regulations in February of 2022, but they still haven't even been finalized. So they've also raised a lot of questions. So the cheat sheet I have, again, this is only for IRAs inherited after 2019. If you inherited an IRA prior to 2020, you're under the old rules. So
Okay,
if you inherited money,
only if the inheritance occurred in 2020 or later.
2020 or later, yes.
Right.
The first, you got two important questions that you need to answer. The first one is, did the IRA owner die before or after his required beginning date for RMDs? So the required beginning date is April 1st of the year following the year that the owner reached his first RMD. You can always, drag it out to April 1st. So the first RMD age right now under Secure Act 2.0 is 73. And if you have a Roth IRA, they're always considered to have died before the required beginning date because Roth IRAs never have RMDs. So the first question is, were they of RMD age or younger? And then the second question is the IRA beneficiary, and this is where it gets convoluted, an eligible designated beneficiary, a non-eligible designated beneficiary, or a non-designated beneficiary? And let me break that out. An eligible designated beneficiary is a surviving spouse of the owner, a minor child under 21 of the owner, a chronically ill or disabled person, or someone not more than 10 years younger than the owner. So it could be a sibling.
God,
Dan. If you had a brother. I know. This is the rules.
No. This
that we work under.
This sounds like a Monty Python bit. You know,
it's ridiculous.
And the number shall be 5, and the number 3, whatever it is. God.
And then you have an NEDB, a non-eligible designated beneficiary. That's anybody who's not an eligible designated beneficiary. And then a NDB, which is an NDB. This is a beneficiary who isn't a person. So if you left it to a charity, if you left it to an estate. So they're the two questions you got to ask. And then the first scenario is the IRA owner dies before the required beginning date. Well, if you're an eligible designated beneficiary, you can elect to stretch the RMDs over their life expectancy or have the 10-year payment rule apply. Okay, so if the 10-year rule is elected, the entire account has to be emptied by 12/31 of the 10th year following the year of death. But no RMDs are required during the 10-year period. So if they are not taking RMDs, you don't have to take any RMDs. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do, but that's the rules. Now, if you're not an eligible designated beneficiary, so you're non-eligible, then the 10-year rule applies, but no annual RMDs are required. And if you're an entity, if you're not a person, if you're a charity or something, then you have a 5-year rule, and the entire account has to be emptied by the end of the 5th year, and no annual RMDs are required.
Damn.
And then the second question is, what if the owner died after they were subject to RMDs? Well, then you have to take RMDs out. Doesn't matter what you are. You got to take RMDs out in the year or 2 following the owner's death. So I guess, my point is this is the world we live in, and this is how the IRS came up with these convoluted rules. Made things a lot more difficult, and people tend to make more mistakes when they have these types of inherited IRA accounts.
I can imagine the nightmare of the phone call with Social Security or somebody or the IRS.
The IRS, yeah.
And it's IRS, and you're trying to figure this out, and they ask, so, is the deceased, did they die 5 years before or 5 years after the RMDs were or were not taken? You're going like, I don't know. Well, are you an eligible beneficiary or an ineligible beneficiary? I'm thinking like, wait a second. Eligible or ineligible? Aren't I still a beneficiary? Well, not if you're ineligible. But you have the word beneficiary there. God.
Right. It's crazy. It's crazy, and it's funny. We get all this stuff from Ed Slott because we're members of his financial advisor think tank, so to speak. And it's hard to keep track of all this stuff. It really is. So,
he's
but it's
brilliant.
nice to have this little cheat sheet. Yeah, he is. He really keeps up on this stuff. So, but yeah, we're it's funny because we didn't up until I'd say maybe 10 years ago. You just didn't see a whole lot of people inheriting IRAs, and then as they became more prevalent, the government had to stick their foot in and make it a lot more complicated. So
Ed Slott is like internationally known. He really is brilliant with this stuff, isn't he?
Oh yeah, he really is.
Yeah, hasn't he been on your?
He's probably the premier IRA expert in the country.
He's been on your show, hasn't he, on Sunday mornings?
Yeah. He was on the show a couple times, and but he's up in Rockville, New York, and whenever the Wall Street Journal needs a quote on IRAs, they go to Ed Slott. So
I remember hearing him on the program one Sunday morning at 7. I was up. I said, you know what? Dan's on. I got to listen to this, maybe learn something. But then I hear something like this, and I'm thinking, I'm just glad I know you. Because this is crazy time. It really is.
I mean, the average person, there's no way they'd be able to figure this out,
No, and by the way, can you still be a beneficiary if you're a non-eligible beneficiary?
Yeah, it's like a foreign language,
Good Lord. All right, so look, folks, Dan's figured this stuff out, so you don't have to. 888-690-8820, 888-690-8820. He knows the language, which is Washington speak. It's very, very bizarre. They ought to teach this in schools as a second language. What's coming up this Sunday morning at 7?
Yeah, on the money Sunday morning, we're going to talk about just recently the 2024 Social Security Trustees report came out. It's got some good news in it. They pushed out when Social Security is going to run out of money back a year, but we're going to talk about the Trustees report and what it means for people out there.
And I know you study this, and you've even talked to lawmakers in D.C. on a number of these issues, and the Social Security thing seems to be pretty easy to solve. You can increase the amount of money you can increase the salary range for people who have to, contribute to Social Security.
On how much you have to contribute. Yeah. Like right now, it's about $160,000. Once you get above that, you don't pay in anymore.
Yeah, and that's not going to fix the problem. You want to fix the problem? Everybody pays in. And now you don't have to worry about that.
Right now it's 6.2. I mean, would it kill people if they raised it to 6.5 or something? You're probably not even going to notice it hardly in your paycheck, and yet that would create some solvency to the system. But, they just drag their feet, and they wait till the 11th hour to fix these things. And if they did it sooner, it would probably be a lot easier on all of us. So.
Yeah, well, maybe. However, I look at all the taxes and fees that are coming our way and inflation, which now I looked at the nonpartisan Bureau of Labor Statistics number just yesterday and found that since January 2021, the rate of inflation is now 19%. 19% since 2021.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. The 1 year it was 10, and then it dropped to about 6. So, yeah, I'm not surprised. Yeah, they said the average person out there today, it's costing them like $11,000 more dollars a year just for basic necessities. So,
which is why so many of us have second or third jobs in order to try to keep up like that. Well, Dan, you're the best, man. I appreciate you. Folks, you can give him a call at 888-690-8820, 888-690-8820, and say, hey, Alicia, I heard you on Jensen and want to have a conversation. He's not going to try to rope you into anything. He's a decent guy, and he won't charge you anything. So there you go, Dan. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks a lot, Rick. Have a great day.
You too.